Okay, 1 minute. Good timing.
I know, that was great. Thank you.
So this is a camera here. So I can put that wherever you want.
What's best? Probably if I put it over there.
There you go. Sounds good. Oh, somebody shut the door. Can one of you open the door? I'm sorry, they can't get in. I had it. I had it in there. It's cold. I had that little piece of wood in there. Plenty of room up front. Greg?
Or you might get a fender bender and then you're probably slower than you got.
How are we?
Good, how are you?
What have you got?
I'm just doing the computer.
Hi, Mark.
So for the purposes of the presentation, and Zoom, where should I stand?
I have it set up here.
Yeah,
I have a camera.
Probably the front.
yeah, no, I just want to make sure, thank you. I want to make sure that
So for the presentation.
I'm in the right camera angle. So if there are people on Zoom, what we've got is we've got a hybrid meeting. And there are folks watching
Camera's
Zoom.
running, right?
Yeah,
Or we can tell you, sort of.
So
Makeup looks great.
huh? From behind, I look good. Yeah, that's good. That's great. Am I okay?
It's hidden behind there.
It's the laptop camera, so we can move it.
We're moving around. Okay. I just
If
wanna
Mark
be-
stays there, we can see him okay.
Zooming in. I don't know how many people are zoomed in.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you want that first or second row there?
Mark,
But that-
see, it's that laptop right over there, so, or it's
What
the camera right in front of
So anywhere in here.
I'm blocking it right now.
Nowhere to stand. When I worked in Congress, it was just, here, Congressman, here's where you stand, so. Say, Mark, where you stand.
As soon as Katie moves, you'll be able to see.
We're just trying to get in presentation
All
mode.
right, good. Well, hey, folks, thanks for coming. It's good to see everybody. You know, the last time we got together, we had, it was a lot warmer, right? Remember that? We had to have the door open. And, we had lots of refreshments. In fact, we had so many refreshments, people had to leave with things, so. I apologize for the weather. And I feel bad that we don't have refreshments, but I think what we have for you today, I think will be a pretty good, update on what's going on, and, you know, the next meeting will have some goodies and hopefully some better weather for you. For those of you who don't know, I am Mark Forrest. I'm on the Yarmouth Board of Selectmen, and I am also chairman of the Cape Cod Conservation District. And the Cape Cod Conservation District is a political subdivision in the Commonwealth. We were established by the legislature in 1947, and our job is to work on local conservation projects and provide guidance, get this, guidance to the federal government. We're the one organization probably in the state that actually tells the federal government what to do. Isn't that nice? We provide guidance and leadership, and they look to us for guidance and leadership on what important projects we should be focused on here on Cape Cod. So that's one of the great things about working on this district. Now, as the chairman of the district, one of the things that I've been very determined to do is to make sure that of the federal funds that are available to do restoration work, right? To do watershed restoration. All right, that we get as much of that federal money to Cape Cod as we can. So I've actually started working on this since 2005, when I worked for a guy named Gary Studs. Anybody remember Gary Studs?
Sure do.
Gary was the congressman for the district, and he asked the local conservation district and staff at the NRCS to work on a comprehensive Cape-wide initiative to identify important coastal restoration projects throughout the region. So, this was back in, God, I hate to say it, but in the early 1990s, before some of you were born, right? In the early 90s, Studs wanted to make sure that Cape Cod was on the leading edge of this effort. And the reality is that we have been. And so when I worked for Congressman Studs, we started the study work and the investigative work. With Congressman Delahunt, the plan was done. And Congressman Delahunt shepherded it through the Congress. And then we got congressional approval. And when Congressman Delahunt left office and retired, I came back to Cape Cod from Capitol Hill and spent time focused on how to keep the momentum behind this initiative. So I've been doing this as a chairman of the Cape Cod Conservation District, and we've raised a significant amount of federal money. We have been able to direct somewhere between $80 to $100 million in federal funding and state funding from a variety of sources for all sorts of conservation restoration initiatives, from literally one end of the Cape to the other. Okay, we've been involved, you may have heard of the Herring River Restoration Project, all right? A lot of news in Wellfleet. That's one of the largest coastal restoration projects, on the East Coast. And the district has played a role from its inception. When Dr. John Portnoy begged folks to focus on the restoration of this watershed that was in real trouble. And back then, we didn't know anything about the problems facing our salt marshes. We didn't know anything about the demise and the challenges facing these coastal resources. We didn't even understand the value of these assets. And so the district has played a small role in helping educate and make people aware of the importance of our salt marshes and our coastal resources all around the region. So we have restoration projects in virtually every town. Now, I will have to admit, because I'm very Yarmouth centric, that we do concentrate a little bit of energy here in the town of Yarmouth. We're working with Rick Bishop and trying to help get some important work in the upper Bass River watershed taken care of. And that's exciting. Rick, wave your hand. A shout out to Rick Bishop. He's doing a fantastic job, Rick. Keep up the good work. So we're very happy to be partnered with them in their project. We're working actually with grassroots groups literally all around the Cape in helping get these projects off the ground. One of the great things that we did is we stole back from Wellfleet, Martha Craig, who used to run the, go ahead, give her applause, go right ahead. Martha is a dynamo, and she's the one that was sort of the brainchild of putting together the plan and the permitting and getting all the state and local federal agencies working together to come up with a comprehensive restoration plan, for the Herring River watershed area. It's a remarkable achievement. And before she left, we were able to get a lot of federal money and state money to that project. I keep getting asked all the time, when are we ever going to, is this ever really going to happen? I mean, come on, this is a lot of money we're looking for. And I kept telling people that we're going to figure out a way. So with Martha's help.
And you did.
We did. I promised people, I've made a lot of promises on funding over the years on Cape Cod. And so far I've had, knock on wood, we've had, some really good success on the environmental front. But this is where I'm spending most of my time right now. And that is on this aspect of coastal and environmental restoration. It's focused on our coastal resources, our salt marshes, and making sure that we find ways to sort of restore a lot of degraded habitat. And in Yarmouth, we have work to do. This area that you're concerned about is an area that we're concerned about. We've been very fortunate to get the state Division of Ecological Restoration as a partner with us. So for this project, we have as partners, the Division of Ecological Restoration, a state agency committed to working in this space. We've got Cape Cod Hospital, Cape Cod Healthcare. What's happening in healthcare is an awareness that having an outdoor environment that can provide adequate respite and a pleasant experience for maybe walking and being engaged a little bit closer to Mother Nature actually can be very therapeutic. And now you all know that, of course, but now it seems to be getting much more acceptance in the healthcare community. So the Cape Cod Hospital has gone from being a passive partner to a very active partner. They've been wonderful to work with. They really have. So, and then obviously the town of Yarmouth. And once again, Jeff Colby's been an incredible help to us. Give a round of applause to Jeff. Thank you, Jeff, for having us here in your neck of the woods here at the Yarmouth DPW. We appreciate all the town support. So the last time we were here, we told you what we were starting out on. It was sort of the initial phases. Here's what we're thinking of doing. And you gave us a lot of input. And what we promised to do is that every step of the way, we'd come back to you and tell you what we're doing, where we're going, and get more input. Your input has been incredibly valuable. We look at our goal is to end up with a restored wetland area that's not just an asset from an environmental point of view, but is also an asset to the community and something that the neighbors and the people, particularly in this part of Yarmouth, are very proud to have. And I know we've heard so many stories about how this area has been utilized and how much it's been a recreational area, how much it's been enjoyed in so many ways over the years. And all that information has been incredibly helpful. Earlier today, we had a meeting with town officials to brief them and to get some input. We consistently reach out to them to get some insight in terms of how we're doing and get their suggestions. But clearly what's very, very important is to hear what's on your mind. So we have a brief presentation. As you know, we've hired Katie Barnacle as our consultant to help sort of pull everything together. Katie's been busy working on an environmental assessment. We've made it available, I think, on our website, or we will soon be making it available on our website. Katie's going to give you the highlights of that assessment. Some of you have received copies of it. I don't know if we have any extra copies that are here, but we may have a handful here. The last copy. People have been scooping them up. Yeah. At the end of the presentation, we'll leave you with contact information. If you don't have it or having trouble accessing it, you can just email us. Then we'll make sure you get it. We have a PDF version of the assessment and the update. We'll be able to get that to you. So what Katie's going to do is tell you where we've been and tell you where we're going. And then she's going to be asking you questions about things that you can do to be helpful to us. So without any further ado, Katie Barnacle, thank you. Take it away.
Hi, I'm Katie Barnacle with Ilex Environmental. I know a lot of your faces and seen a lot of people here last year when we gave the update. So glad to be here again. And this is our screen for tonight. Hope you don't mind. Little noise, but we did the best we could to get the presentation up. So if you could go to the next screen. Some of these you've already seen before, but I think it's good to just reintroduce. Tonight, we're going to talk about the background and baseline assessment that hopefully a lot of you have taken a look at already. And that goes into the hydrologic study that Horsley and Witten are doing for the Cape Cod Conservation District. And so I'll talk a little bit about the groundwater, the surface water, the tidal hydrology, other environmental issues, and then proposed studies. That's what that says, and then next steps. As Mark just said, we're working with the Conservation District, the Cape Cod Hospital, and the state DER, who all are the trifecta of great people to work with, and I'm really happy I get to work with these people. It's a good team. And then we also have the consultants that are working with us. We have Eliza from Nutter, McLennan and Fish. Katie Barnacle, that's me. We have Neil Price over at Horsley and Witten Group who's doing the hydrologic study for us. And then Dan Ojala at Down Cape Engineering. They've been working on the site for decades now. And then, of course, we have all the stakeholders and this, this is you guys, this is an important part here. We have local and state and federal agencies, and this is expected to expand. This includes other individuals. And this makes this like a really positive project that we have everyone working together on this to a similar goal to get things done, which is really great because sometimes, that doesn't always come together on projects. So this is really exciting. Doesn't mean we don't have hurdles, but it's really positive. So this is the site. The site is outlined in black. It's a really unique configuration around the bogs. The orange arrow on the top is mislocated. Sometimes when I do these presentations, things get shifted around. The computer, not me. I didn't make that mistake, but thank you for laughing. So there's an inlet. It doesn't really flow, but there is a culvert that's not functional from the north from Route 28, and it comes through the bog system. Then we have two outlets, and there's actually a third potential outlet over here, but where the yellow arrows are, there are culverts. And we're looking at those also. So we're looking at the entire system from north to south, east to west. But this everyone knows, I think that's in this room, everyone knows where we are, but this kind of sets the stage. Next, yes, please. So the baseline assessment, this is just kind of a general overview of how we set it up. Talked about the proposed work plan, what we want to do, like our goals and objectives, what the existing conditions are, and we're still working on that. Design considerations for what we want to achieve out here, and supporting information. And we tried to collect figures and maps and plans and aerial photographs of present day and past aerial photographs. So we tried to get as much information as we could that was valuable to establishing kind of the historical use of the site. And this is a living document. This is version 1. Like when we get the hydrologic report completed by Horsley and Witten, we expect to expand this report, enlarge the report, issue version 2. It'll be the same report, but we're just going to keep expanding on it and evolving, whether that's once a year or a couple times a year. It depends on what we're doing. But so if you see any information that needs to be included, that we have not included, if you see something that needs to be fixed, we're more open to getting revisions, comments, criticisms, whatever from everybody. So we want this to be a report that we can all, be really proud of. So, so that's that. Okay.
Yeah, good question.
Yes.
So for those comments and revisions, is there an official way to submit those?
My contact information will be at the end. You can just contact it right through me. I'll share it to Mark and Jess Cohn, who couldn't be here tonight. She's with the Mass DER. And, we meet on a regular basis so we can, sorry, my allergies. So we can share, that information and try to figure out where to go with everything. Okay. So these are our goals and objectives. I've kind of simplified them here. You've heard these before, but to restore the wetlands and wildlife habitat out there. Quality habitat. We want to get something really good going out there. We need to look at climate change to see how it's going to be change in the future. So we need to incorporate that into our design, but also what we can do for resiliency, how we can incorporate this being in the coastal setting and how it can help with the sea level rise issues. Remove barriers for aquatic passage. We have a dam out there. We have at least one dam out there, a lot of berms and a lot of cranberry bog culverts. Create safe passive recreation, very important. As all of you have let us know, and also the hospital has let us know, and because of the growth of the trees that have occurred in the past 20+ years, it's created a bit of a issue for safety, and that kind of comes under the nuisance issues. We have rare species. We have invasive species. We have the homeless camps out there. It's just doesn't feel as safe as it used to be out there. I was involved in the project back when there was an EPA enforcement order on, so I remember seeing this also. I know I'm not a neighbor, but I was out there when it was, the operating cranberry bog, so I remember.
The enforcement order for what?
Back in 1999, the, Cape Cod Hospital renovated about 18.5 acres of cranberry bog to become active cranberry bogs, but they didn't get a federal permit. So the EPA is kind of the enforcement wing, along with the US Army Corps of Engineers. They issued an enforcement order. I was hired with a company that I was involved in to look at a restoration plan at that time. And at that time, the 18.5 acres of active cranberry bogs were abandoned. And we put the flash boards in place. We studied the hydrology, and the Cape Cod Hospital walked away from being cranberry growers.
They
And
were
then
abandoned for over the 5-year period.
actually, they were abandoned. There was about 44 acres of active cranberry bog at one point. And I don't know exactly when they were abandoned, but there was the cranberry scare of early 60s, late 50s.
59.
59, when a lot of cranberry bogs in Massachusetts were abandoned because.
And that
people
wasn't
dumped it.
one of them.
That wasn't one of them.
No.
So at some point, they stopped being farmed. And then 18.5 acres were renovated in the late 90s.
But the
Um,
hospital owned that land prior to 81, because we had an unusual situation. There were still standing rights on the back. from
Oh, yeah, yeah.
The property we had to get the Board of Trustees to release in 81, so I know the hospital would have bought it in 76 or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
Were they
Yeah.
active then?
Well, I got pictures that show you there was nothing out there. I mean, we were ice skating and doing various things
Yeah.
in the ponds out there. I got some other pictures I'll show
They
you.
probably
later.
was active then. They
Yeah,
probably were
I
active
used to
then.
take some cranberries, to tell you the truth, steal them around Thanksgiving out in the back without paying
No,
for
I've
them.
never done that.
No, never. I think the statute of limitations of prosecuting is gone.
Sorry, what was your name?
Philippa Lovina.
Well, that's the kind of information, if we add to the history, I think it's important. I only know bits and pieces. We can pull the aerial photographs of what's available,
Yeah.
but if you guys have more information, that's helpful.
You can help with history, I grew up on that bar.
Okay.
Hospital to that neighborhood on the north side of them.
Yeah.
And that bar was, actively working, all of it except the little north side of the bar that backs up to the forest part.
Yeah.
That was not active, that wouldn't have, but all the rest of the bonds were active at least until 1978.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
all right.
So I can tell you that.
All right. Well, that's the kind of information, if you have, specific things or photographs we can incorporate, we can definitely do that. Thank you for your input. I guess we can go to the next one. So, there's a lot of phases. It's taken us a while to get to this assessment phase. It's taken a couple of years, right? And so now we're in the assessment phase. We've completed the first assessment report. The good news is that a request for proposals just went out to design firms, to engineering firms. So we can take this report, give it to these engineering design firms and say, give us a proposal. We got to get moving. So they're going to be contracted within weeks or months, maybe weeks. And so we're moving really quickly into the design phase. And so things are going to start moving a little quicker. I know it's been frustrating. We've been talking about this for a while and took a while for the assessment to get done. But, here we are, we're moving into the design phase. As part of the design phase, there's probably going to be a lot more public hearings and public meetings and talking about what do we want to incorporate into the design and actually get it designed based on the hydrology information, because we don't get the hydrology right, we don't get the design right. There have been failures in the past, but I think what's great is Massachusetts has done, 9 or 10 very substantially large bog restoration projects, and one is in Tidmarsh in Plymouth. If you've walked that, it's pretty exciting what they've been able to accomplish there. And then we get into the permitting, which takes a while. We're in Massachusetts, we're one of the, I think California and Massachusetts have some of the strongest wetlands protection and permitting, environmental protection permitting. So we have to go to the state, we probably have to go to the Cape Cod Commission, we have to go to the Yarmouth Conservation Commission, so that could take some time. So if everyone could be patient, but we are moving quickly now into the design phase, which is really exciting. A new flyer has just been issued by the Cape Cod Hospital, and you can go, I'm sorry, I don't have copies to hand out here, but this really takes those, the phases, the 4 phases, and actually adds a monitoring phase here. And it's a 1-page flyer, and it has a little QVC or whatever you call it code.
The audio is gone.
Like a third party, like a conservation trust. And then they'd be responsible for certain activities, and the hospital would be responsible, and then we'll work with the town to, you know, kind of work together in a partnership. What's really great about DER is that they're really strong on these partnerships to make sure they work, you know, who's responsible for what. So it's really clear who has the roles and that they're being done. Because if state funds are being used and we have state funds for this, then, you know, we need to make sure that they're being done. You know, if we get audited or whatever happens when my job is done. Okay.
Sorry.
That's okay. So the hydrologic study prepared by Corsley Hewitt and
Can we bring that bar down, okay, bottom? That's great.
Yeah.
Whoops.
It doesn't go all the way.
that's as far, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, good. That's it.
Close.
So like I said, it's really critical to any design is we have to understand the surface and groundwater hydrology, just what's going on out there. We can't just assume, you know, water flows north to south or, you know, it rises and lowers to the tides, things like that. So, and what's exciting is that we're collecting both groundwater and surface water information for this. And the report will be issued in 2024. In fact, we hope that the report will be issued in April.
Yeah.
And that the design team that gets hired, that'll come about the same time, so they will be able to get that information and start their designs.
Question?
Yes,
In reviewing the report, it appears that the study area is basically kind of the southern part of the Mill Creek watershed. Is the study area going to be the entire watershed?
it's gonna be the site, but we do have, I believe, monitoring north of 28.
Okay.
My question would be more, if we look at the hydrology of the watershed. The hydrology of the watershed actually is impacted by things that are going on.
Yes,
North.
yes, the wells, yeah,
So the well, right,
Yes,
so
yes.
Understanding all of the wells,
yes,
and what that hydrological impact is.
yeah.
That's gonna be
Yes,
part of
yeah,
it?
correct.
Okay.
And thank you, because I don't have that in this
Yeah.
presentation. But there's, because this is specific to what we're monitoring on the site.
That's right.
But we have a 210 acre watershed, which is a relatively small watershed. This is the area around the site that contributes water, surface water runoff to the site. So we need to know what's going on in the 210 acres. And a lot of it, you know, there might be storm drains, you know, from roadways, there's, you know, we need to look at everything that's going on, because we also need to look at how this project could impact things outside of the site, people's basements, you know, flooding, things like that. Yes,
Would it be helpful to have historical information about that water flow?
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
Um,
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, That's my backup, cough drop in case I start coughing. I got my secret.
Sort of point out that there's going to be a separate level of studies and investigation as to the withdrawal rates of the water supply to the north. And how it's impacting the wetland area there. As some people may know, some people in this room may know that sometimes those withdrawal rates have exceeded what some might consider to be prudent standards. And Massachusetts has not had a good history of compliance with an enforcement of the Water Management Act. So we need to take a look at that, but we're not gonna let that at the moment drive this. We know that's a variable and an aspect of this that needs to be investigated further.
You know, I'd like to jump onto that comment,
Well,
because
can
something
we-
that you just said, what we are doing here,
Right,
the town of Yarmouth, and what we are doing here is a paradigm shift, from the way that we have viewed things. And this sensibility about the ecological balance, and understanding what our impacts and what our responsibilities are, is a new thing. You know, you mentioned it as earlier on, we didn't know that these issues were there. And it's in recognizing it and taking responsibility for it that is important. And I have to say that I'm very excited about what you've done. So
thank you. Well, let me just say that this is when I don't want to sound like I'm throwing platitudes out, but it's the support that we get from the community and the interest in the community that is only going to keep us going. Our success is going to be based on the level to which you support what we're trying to do. We know you want to do this. It's your enthusiasm, it's your support, it's your interest in this that has gotten us this far. And it's going to be that continued support and that continued engagement that's going to get us over the finish line. And that's why this is going to be a collaborative process. There's a lot more to your observations and your comments, and I'm happy to talk more, you know, on a sidebar or after the meeting. But there's a lot, you've touched on something that's a very hot issue for me.
Me too.
Thank you.
The gentleman in the back.
Oh, yeah. Question about the study area. On the first map that you showed, one of the major estuaries from the bog area is south of Park Avenue and Hyannis Park, just, I guess, east of Highland Street. And it passes through that culvert and into the bay right there. So is that area, that's personal, is that area also covered as part of the study group from the culvert to the water? The bay?
It's
So the
in-
second question is, does it also include the tidal pool that's between Bayview and Highland?
There's an adjacent project that we'll talk about on the Park Avenue, the two culverts. And we're aware of the third little, what do you call it?
Stinky pond, yeah.
Okay, say it first.
Stinky pond, right.
And that's, we're aware of that, and we're aware of it needs to be addressed when we start doing the design and permitting of the project. But the hydrologic study is just site information right now, just site specific information.
Some of us in here about that, about that area. And I noticed that when the hydrological people were out there driving stakes to measure the water flow, they pounded the stakes in, took all kinds of measurements, and then the day after the storm came in and it was 2 feet higher than
Yeah.
the stake there.
Yeah. If we can go to the next one, I can get into some of the information.
Great, sorry. Way.
From the power, sorry.
Words and direct operations to remove the shoreline place on the fairness.
Yeah, there we go. That's what I didn't think of. Oh, thank you.
Yeah, the next slide.
Can I make a suggestion, just in the end, just so that we can move this along, is hold your questions till the end. I want to get through this slideshow presentation, then we'll have plenty of time for Q and A. So if you've got
Get
a
through it
question,
quick,
let's just kind of get through this and then open it up and hear what people have to say.
So for groundwater, there are 12 wells out there scattered throughout the site. We're gonna have about 2 years of data collected. And it has 1 hour monitoring intervals. So this is all done computer magical stuff that the hydrologists do. I'm sure they can speak to it in more detail when the report comes out. It's surveyed vertical and horizontal, meaning the well is surveyed, so we know exactly where it is on the site, on a site plan, but also vertical, so we can tie in the groundwater fluctuations, the depths to actual elevation. So, you know, it's all real information. So if we know it's elevation 5 and the groundwater is a half foot below, you know, it's all tied into real elevations that can be used for real design. And then a groundwater map, flow map will be created that'll show where the groundwater flows during all the seasons, if it's tidally influenced during, you know, low flows, high flows, things like that, the depth. So we'll have maps created, or Horsley and Witten will be doing all of this. So we'll have some good maps. Surface water, we have 10 surface water monitoring points, 15-minute monitoring intervals. So we're getting a ton of information. And some of our wells have disappeared, so we have to go back out and reinstall them. So there's some information that's not going to be, you know, the full time, but we'll have a ton of information out there. We talked about the small watershed, so that brings up the point of, you know, what we need to study outside the site. And then what determine how the existing culverts. A lot of them, we have monitoring points on the upstream and downstream sides of the culverts. Okay, we can go to the next one. We also are doing tidal monitoring. Because we know that the tides come in through those 2 culverts.
Yeah.
And this is just a picture of one of them. The other one is, I think, right there. And so we know the salt marsh comes up, but we also know that as you move further upstream, you get more freshwater vegetation and you lose the salt marsh. And so what you have is tidally influenced freshwater wetlands. They're not big, you know, we're in this very small, narrow valley. But tidally influenced freshwater wetlands are not common in anywhere, really. We have a huge one on the North River up into Pembroke, as the North River continues up into Pembroke. There's actually a huge area of tidally influenced freshwater wetlands, meaning the waters rise and fall because of the influence of the tides, but there's no salt or there's less salt. So you have a freshwater system. So, you know, we want to see how much tidally influenced freshwater wetlands there are here.
And
And
also
also
that far up.
Yeah,
So you can see the water is right. Yeah. There's more stuff down below. Whoops. Oh, yeah, there's my picture.
Not that one. Good job. I was wondering who did. Okay. Oh, that's good. So we don't need the title, so that's good. All right.
Now she's back,
Yeah. So we're monitoring here.
And right by that red roof house to the right there in the corner, yep, right there,
Oh, it comes out.
right to the
Yeah,
right there.
Yeah, so we're monitoring both of those.
Yeah.
And so we're gonna be getting a lot of information, and you know, all this has to be all reviewed and determined and maps made, so we're not there yet, but this is coming down the pike. And very exciting, we found you guys found 2 box turtles. We didn't have any listing of state listed species. The eastern box turtle is a species of special concern. And we got 2 nice ones here, and if you count the lines on the scutes, kind of like you count the tree rings, I counted about 15 years on both of those. And so you think of, you know, this was, you know, the enforcement action was 2000, so we have about 20 years, 23 years from there. So, you know, maybe these are all born after that. And this is a female. Don't know what that is because really popped the head out. So next time, get the color of the eye.
And he was totally at the south end, total south end, of backing up to Glenwood Street.
Okay,
basically,
okay.
Where he was found.
Yeah,
Down in my
and I'm
backyard.
gonna need to put a little pin on a map.
Yeah, I can show
where
you.
these are.
Yeah.
So that's, you know, that's why we need you guys. You guys are our eyes on the bogs. So anything like that, even if it's just nice wildlife photography, feel free to send it along. Plenty of other issues to talk about that we're gonna have to look at, especially during the permitting, the Barnstable drinking water. It's like, what if those wells go away? What if they're relocated 20 years down the future? How are we gonna handle that with our design? We need to kind of look at that because it would be really nice to design a restoration project where after a certain amount of time, we go away and life takes care of itself. Mother Nature takes care of the bogs. It's like we can design it, we can build it, and hopefully it'll just be in perpetuity after that. Can we do that? That would be really nice.
That would be.
We have environmental justice neighborhoods. These are all the neighborhoods mapped for either income, minority, income plus minority. This is an English isolation area where there's a different language that's spoken in there that we need to address when we do the permitting process, especially with the state MEPA process. We need to make sure that we connect with the community groups that are environmental justice community groups, whether it's through churches or minority groups or the language speaking, and address that. That's part of the MEPA regulations that projects have to go through the state permitting. So that's something we need to do. That's just, more community outreach. And this is a 1 mile radius that we have to address. We have regulatory permitting, so we're working with the town if any bylaws are being revised to make sure that we're able to complete this project. That we're allowed to do that we won't be denied, that we need to make sure that we're not proposing something that's not gonna happen.
What is the proposition?
That we want to restore the wetlands to a more natural community that's less of a cranberry bog type of cross section, because a lot of the times the cranberry bogs have a lot of sand that's been placed on
That's
them.
right.
So the elevations of the bogs may be too high for the hydrology. And then we want to maintain more of an open wetland community that wouldn't necessarily turn into a forest. We may keep some forested islands here and there, but in terms of the security and openness of the bogs that people would like to see, that we want to maintain a hydrology to allow that. It may be creating more water bodies. It may be creating more of a meandering type of ditch system, stream system. So, that's kind of vision. And I do have some photographs that kind of show that vision at the very end of this, but I can't stand here and say, we're gonna be removing 20 acres of cranberry bog and planting, cattails or something like that. It's like, we don't know what that is yet. That's gonna be evolving as part of the design, but the intent is that we have 44 acres of wetlands out on this site right now. We have about 50 acres of uplands, 44 acres of wetlands. We want to make that a more naturally, ecologically
Are we
natural.
trying to do a Tidmarsh project
Yes.
with this,
Yes,
basically?
yes, yeah. But we have, tons on our menu, like open water, streams, forested. Do you want to plant an Atlantic white cedar swamp? Do you want to have, educational, maybe create a mound where you can walk up and have some elevation so you can have a better view of things? There's so many things that we can do. We don't know what that's going to be yet.
I think if we just can continue with the presentation and finish the presentation, some
Yeah,
of the
almost
questions may very well
I have a
be
point
answered.
of clarification on the prior slide, though, that green that was over that entire area, because they had little code down on the right, you can't read. What was the zoning on that? What was that code
Which
represent?
one was it?
The prior slide. That one.
Oh,
Oh, that's lime
This
green.
is an environmental justice map. The
Okay.
state now maps by
Right.
census data. The yellow is minority,
Okay,
and there's certain requirements of what is considered a minority. I don't have those definitions.
but I just
Yeah.
want to know about the green that we're in.
That is by income.
Okay,
So this is considered an environmental justice community, so the income is lower than, or a certain percentage of the income within that group, within that census tract is lower than the median
Okay.
state. There's a whole calculation.
thank you for the clarification.
Okay.
On to the next one, right?
Oh, and there's additional studies. We have some funds available to map the invasive species at the site. Very critical in terms of construction, how we're going to control that. We're not going to eradicate invasive species at the site, but we can control it through design and best management practices. There's also funding through the state, same Massachusetts DER. It's called Transitional Crossing Site Selection. A lot of words there, but what it is that transitional areas have been mapped in blue, and those areas are areas where potential sea level rise, climate change issues may occur. So, and if there are any culverts within the blue areas, the towns can request funding to review those culverts to see, can we make the culverts bigger, smaller, taller, different configuration, bridge them. And so the town has submitted requests for funds for the Park Avenue culverts. Not sure if they're gonna get them. That hasn't been decided yet, but that would just be a study to see if doing something with those culverts would be beneficial and not impact neighbors, but be beneficial to the environment. So those are other things that are kind of site adjacent or projects adjacent to the site that we're looking at and working on. So the next steps are we got to finalize the hydrology study, hopefully in April. Requests for proposals have just been issued this week, I think, to get design, the engineering companies to design this project. So that's going out, that's going to happen fast. And that's going to be funded by the design and permitting services are going to be funded by a state grant and also a grant, Conservation District Innovation Grant. So it's going to be funded. It's all fully funded. So here is, and I think there's a different website now. Maybe the name's changed a little bit, but you can use this website to get to the Cape Cod Hospital site. That's specific to the bog project, which is really exciting. Someone said that on that flyer, you know, that nice pretty flyer that had all the phases, that there's a QVC code. What's it called? QR. Yeah, you get some money in it. It takes you to a slightly different address, but it's the same site, so. And I think, this is me. Kate Barnacle at ilexenvironmental.com. It's my phone number, my email. I can't always get back to you right away, but please, if you have information, I just collect it all and I organize it and we talk about it and may or may not get into the reports, but it is helpful in these discussions to help inform this design that we're going to have. So it's really exciting, and you guys have helped so much to get our report to where it is now with that information, and more information is helpful too. So I think, I have some photographs of just what it may look like. This is not our site. This is another, I think this is Tidmarsh. So this is before. The next one is, it's gonna look pretty bad for a while when the actual work happens, right? And then it looks pretty. And then there's just a combination, this is the last slide, just a combination of things that we can do. These are just ideas. Doesn't mean we're gonna do this, but you know, here's this huge area, I think in North Carolina, that was created, you know, with this kind of meandering open water. And this is a bog, nice bog area, you know, this is what we want. Let's get it. Let's design it. So, that's it. I think it's time for questions and answers, or questions. You may not have the answers.
Okay, I have something. My main concern, and this just strikes home in my heart. This is a beautiful end result, but in the interim, you're just demolishing all this wildlife environment, all the coyote, the deer, everything. They're just like getting demolished over. And is there any way that we could be a little more kindly about that? Like leave them something.
Absolutely.
And this hurts my heart to think about.
And I understand where you're coming from, but I think phasing, you know, we're not gonna go out there and demolish 44 acres of wetlands. Maybe, you know, we work in 5-acre components. Those species that you mentioned and most of the wildlife on our landscape are very, what's the word?
Resilient.
Yes, resilient. Yes. Yeah, all those things.
They are.
They do move. if there are particular things, like if there is a coyote den, you know, that we need to be aware of, or if there is specific, like, in place things, nesting, you know, turtle nesting, those things we need to be aware of so that we can work around that, or during construction, like the box turtles. We'll have to have a construction and management plan during construction so that there is turtle sweep, so that every morning you walk the site, move any turtles outside of the construction area. You know, so there are management things that we can do, but we are gonna, it's gonna be chaos. There is chaos that's involved in this. There's no way around it.
Another concern, and I know it was in the sheets about, you know, people, once it's established, people are gonna be very afraid or whatever. You had talked about mosquitoes, but ticks, and I really don't want to see a lot of chemicals being put in, so.
I wouldn't
it goes
recommend it,
into the water, it's things like that, I'd be very
Get out of the
concerned.
The
way.
best thing I can respond to right now, and again, these are all things that we have to look at, is that the way that trails would be designed
Mhm.
is to make them nice and wide, that they're mowed and maintained,
That
because,
nobody has to brush up. to
yeah,
those
because we
areas.
may have grassy areas in the uplands that we want to keep,
Right.
maybe for grassland habitat. But we don't
Okay.
want to make you walk through that,
No.
because that's what the ticks are
Yeah,
gonna.
I don't.
Yeah.
But if that's something that would be maintenance.
Yeah, okay.
Can I just make a comment that, a really good example of a bog restoration project under construction right now is off of Bank Street in Harwich, on the Bank
Oh.
Street bogs. And they have, I went on, I think they do site visits or site walks every Wednesday, and
That would be great.
and, because the picture you did show looked totally bleak. And when they were, when they were working in an area, and you could go and see them,
That's the way Bank Street looks right now.
well, it's, yeah, that's the way it looks right now, so it's messy where they're working.
Yeah.
But they don't just clear cut the whole block here,
Yeah.
so, because they take all those things into consideration.
Yeah, no,
It's a beautiful spot, and from what I've seen too in the past, that those bog restoration areas often recover very quickly.
Yeah, I mean, the
Mother Nature
picture's
wants to
beautiful.
recover.
I just want them to have some area of the deers to want to be there, or.
And they are resilient. They are resilient.
I love the
They-
clouds.
Yeah.
No, I understand. It will heal.
You'll make
It will
it
heal.
Yeah.
It will heal. There you go.
So what's criteria we use to look at a competing proposal?
That's a good question. Competing
From the,
proposal.
on the RFP that's out right now?
Yeah.
Or the RFP, it'll be looked at price and quality of the proposal.
These are companies that are already,
And
pre-qualified,
through the state.
that have done projects like this. So it's not just, hey, let's get
Yeah.
on board with.
So how do you determine the quality of the proposal?
By
History.
by the history and the review and the experiences of the firms.
Oh,
This is an area where there's probably about a half a dozen to a dozen firms doing this in the Northeast. And there are a handful that are very active on Cape Cod that are doing very good work. So we're not gonna have a challenge finding the talent. All right, we're in reasonably good shape. Because like I said, the district is involved in projects from one end of the Cape to the other. And we're dealing with a lot of these firms in all of these other communities. And so we have a very good idea of who's performing or who may not be performing. But I think we have a very good handle. Plus, we can, you know, our partners, the state, they have even a much larger purview. They're doing projects north of the canal throughout the Commonwealth. So we've got a pretty good handle on the capabilities and the experience.
So who makes the decision of like which proposal to choose?
Right now, that's gonna be under the district. That'll be the district's responsibility. Yes, sir.
Yes, I have a question about the PFAS. I saw one bullet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there gonna be anything going back to see if there's any impact from the airport or the firefighter academy? It's affecting.
Well, we're acknowledging that because there are ongoing investigations, and what we try to do is learn from those
Right,
investigations.
but the
All right?
airport saying they're going in an entirely different direction. It'd be interesting to see if you have any PFAS if it ties into the same flow that the airport has identified as theirs.
It would be interesting. Like I said, we're looking at it very, very closely.
We have to.
What the other study, you have to understand, there are other investigations that are going on as well. Sometimes there are investigations that are going on that some of us, don't know about until all of a sudden they're done. Harvard people have been out here doing stuff. There've been other groups that have been doing stuff. Silent Spring is out there testing people, consumers, or the blood results of people who may have consumed water. The thing that we're learning in the town of Yarmouth is that, there are multiple sources of PFAS, and some sources we don't know. But it's also important to note that PFAS can also come from septic systems. All right, we've seen that in town, we've learned from that. So, there's a part of me that would like to say, okay, there's PFAS from the airport and the fire training area, and let's tackle that. But the reality is that's not gonna, they're one of a multiple of groups. And we're only learning the tip of the iceberg on the PFAS contamination. I hate to say it, but it's a very, very sobering situation.
And the reason I went to the airport is they've done some background and identified something unique to theirs. It'd be interesting to see if any of that is in the book.
Yeah.
There's like 20 different PFAS components, yeah.
Yeah, but, yeah.
Oh, water flow though. They
It
know what
is.
the groundwater flow is.
I understand, yeah.
And that's why the hydraulic.
Point
is
to
so
it, we
important.
could spend the rest of the next hour talking about PFAS, but we're not.
Which way the
We're
water.
well aware of it, that's why we noted it on the slide,
Not a mystery.
yeah. Anybody else? Yes, yeah.
My house was built in 1985, and I am practically in the barn on Russo Road. And since I bought it brand new from the builder, and every 10 years, there's this master plan of what's going to happen to the barn.
Every 10 years?
It seems that way.
Okay, well,
That,
this is news to me, this is where,
okay. So.
I guess we're the latest version.
I-
Sorry about that.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if any
Sorry.
of you have-
That's good to know.
Oh,
Do you have copies of those other master plans? If you have-
Discovery Harbor. and-
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
We remember those,
Yeah,
yeah.
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 There are fantasies, yes, we know there are fantasies and dreams, but this is a real.
Enough of the players involved in this to actually bring it to fruition.
This time we do.
Yeah,
think
we
it's,
do.
but it's funded, these studies
Yeah.
are funded.
We, like I said, the district has a track record of working on projects from one end of the Cape to the other. We just don't start them and walk away. No, we're very focused on bringing them to completion. Same with the state DER, right? So we're in reasonably good shape on that front. Now, if there are other plans or things that your presence here in the neighborhood, you're a valuable asset. You're a source of information. If there are things that you would like to share with us, other plans that you might be aware of that you have, or things that you want to pass on to us.
Right
Yeah.
now, I am mainly concerned with on Russo Road, we have a lake.
You
The
do.
road, on the road.
You have a lake on the road.
On the
Okay,
road.
well, talk to
That would be
Mr.
a town
Colby.
issue.
Yeah, talk to Mr.
Right
Colby. You asked if we had the right stakeholders in the room. We do. Yeah. Somebody that we haven't heard from yet.
Like almost up to my house now.
There you go.
You mentioned the funding.
Yeah.
Funding, how far down the line is the project funded? Right from engineering design.
The state has made a commitment to the conservation district to fund us.
Through permitting.
Right, to completion, right through permitting and through construction.
Does that have to be appropriated in somebody years through? Or is it just? Okay,
If you look, no,
you know, maybe.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I think some of you know, I've worked on a lot of projects and, I'm not gonna stand in front of you and talk to you about a project that's not gonna happen.
Okay.
It's gonna happen. What I need your help on is just staying engaged in this process. So as we go through the next phase is gonna be the key phase, because we will have to begin the process of looking at our restoration plan options. And not only looking at them from one lens, whether it's the environment or the wildlife or habitat, but also the lens from the community. And our hope is that we come up with something that makes wildlife happy, makes our habitat happy, makes the ecology happy, our water happy. Remember now, Lewis Bay is an impaired estuary, right? We have to make sure that we reduce nitrogen. So we are going to be looking at what can we do in this project to improve the overall water quality in Lewis Bay. So that's a fact, we haven't talked about that, but that's also in the back of our minds, definitely, definitely. You know, and there are other things going on, you know, if we talked about everything, we'd literally be here all night. So what we try to do is we try to key in on the key factors, the most important goals and everything else. But just so that, you know, we grasp the breadth of it all. And again, because we've been designated by the Division of Ecological Restoration as a priority project, what that means is that they've made a commitment to work with us to the very end. They only do so many of those in so many areas. We just happen to be one of a handful on Cape Cod that they've designated. And we're gonna learn things through this process about other issues and things that will need to get addressed. That's what happens when you do a restoration project like this, you know, in Wellfleet, Harwich, Chatham, all these other communities, Coonamessett River, you know, as they dive into it, they find other things, they discover other things that need to be attended to, or to be cautious about. What I'm most anxious to understand some of the points that Brian talked about. And that is the overall hydrology of the much larger watershed. How much water is being taken out of the watershed from those wells? How much of an impact is it having in the wetlands above the area and into the Bayview bogs? We know the area was dammed up in 1970, that culvert that was underneath Route 28 that connected Mill Pond marshes to the Bayview bogs. We know that was dammed up. Someone dammed it up. It was sort of like a renegade dam project. And we have a general idea, you know what I'm talking about, right? Right, you know? I mean, when I was.
And it wasn't a beaver.
Right, it wasn't a beaver, it wasn't wild, no.
Well, I gotta disagree with that.
Okay, good,
I gotta disagree with that.
okay.
And it was, the water was diverted to supply the water to the cranberry bog. They backed up back to the mill and sent the water under Camp Street and down through the culvert by the old mill store to flood the bogs back in the day.
To put it on my street.
Here you go. Thank God.
But what makes this project a priority?
Makes it a priority?
Yes, because it drains into Lewis Bay.
It's a priority for a variety of reasons.
Yeah.
All right. Coastal resiliency, look at in terms of floodplain management. This was, at one time, God knows when, but it was a much more vibrant and active wetland area.
Yeah.
The size of it is obviously of great significance. The state is generally interested also, what's also unique about this wetland area is it's in a densely populated area. Exactly, very densely populated area. And if you look at their lineup of projects, there's nothing like this one in a similarly densely populated area. Many of these projects that they're doing around the state are in very rural, uninhabited
Which
areas.
would be the Tidmarsh project.
Exactly, yeah, if you look at like Coonamessett Farm, or not the farm, but the Coonamessett River. That project, very isolated, not a lot of residents. This is in a very unique area, urban, very urban environment. And like I said, if you look at their portfolio of projects, there are very few like this. So it's important that there's also a diversity of these projects from the state's point of view. And I think quite frankly, what also helps us is because we are in an economic justice area. We are in an area, now from my point of view as a local, this is an area, quite frankly, in our community that has not been given the kind of attention that it deserves. All right? This is an area, this is a neighborhood and an area that as a town official, I believe we need to focus more energy and attention on. And it's important, you know, as municipal officials that we take the needs and concerns of the people that live in this area seriously. I honestly felt that when the last restoration work was done, it didn't go far enough. It was a start. And it left a number of problems and issues behind that needed to be addressed. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to really, and it's great that Katie has the history
I
when,
can be blamed for the previous restoration.
no, you really can't, no, you can't, because the reality is that, and I was around, I got the call from Cape Cod Hospital, I was the first one that the president of the hospital called when there was a fine being levied against them. It was a very, very contentious situation.
Who was the president then?
The president, I'm not gonna say, but I
Is he
got the
dead
call, yes.
Mr. Fruin?
I'm not gonna say anything else. All right, the point is that, that was a very contentious time. And it was difficult coming up with a compromise on how to basically end that regulatory engagement. So we did what we had to do. We moved on. At the time, I was working for Congressman Studs, and I've always felt that ever since that time, we had to come back to this. We couldn't leave the project the way it was. It needed to be revisited. Yes, ma'am.
Katie, I wanted to thank you for your presentation. It was very helpful. A couple comments. One, I appreciate that we're looking north of 28. As we know, there's wells in both towns, and the drawdown is going to be impacting the whole lens there. Also, considering it's 210 acres, as you said, it's extremely small, and you're looking at a wetland that we're encompassing that. So thanks for that clarification. One of my concerns is really it seems that it might be a little lacking is the ecological assessment. If it wasn't for the graces of Chris taking a picture of box turtle, we know, I mean, the PSP doesn't have the time to do the surveys. We don't really know if there's priority habitats there or not, because people aren't able to be doing those studies on a consistent basis. One of the things I was thinking that we might want to look at is engaging local groups. So we could speak to Cape Cod birders and have them go out there and do kind of a count off, if you will, for a weekend, so we can have some numbers. I saw some comments recently on your chat there. Someone had said that they had seen a bald eagle.
Yeah.
That we want to make sure there's confirmation there, because obviously with the raptors and such, they have their own radar. So I'm wondering if there are any thoughts.
That's a great suggestion. We can definitely do that.
I really like that, because if we do have to file with the Cape Cod Commission, we have to do a natural resources inventory. And some can be anecdotal, like, and it's a bald eagle, it's important to list, it's also important to know if they're nesting.
Right.
You know, so there's different levels of information, but I think if there's like a concerted effort to do that, also it'd be fun, call me, I'll come down.
I know sometimes it's the bearer of bad news, but that'll also put us ranked up for money. For grants.
Yeah,
So,
but also the scientists that are out there from the different companies, like when I'm out there, I'm always looking for, to see what vegetation's out there, if something different shows up that I haven't seen before that might be, listed, or, there are other people out there that always have eyes on it. We're not necessarily doing it for, a birding survey or birding count. But, there are a lot of eyes out there that we're always looking, like, what's this, is that invasive, is that rare, things like that. And your eyes too. So I think that's a really good way to support the data that we are going to need for the permitting.
Right,
Yeah.
I do think it's important to have a specific biota assessment done, so we're
Yes,
looking at a
absolutely.
contract and figuring out what's in the water.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And then that should be obviously part of the assessment, because that'll go and then speak to what necessarily we have there.
Yep.
For the design.
Exactly, because are we, what are we designing for? I mean, you have 100 species. Yeah.
And then, is there gonna be a vegetative survey? So you said invasive species.
Yeah, we'll map the invasive species. Well, we'll have like a cover type map. So like, is this a red maple sapling swamp? We don't have any Atlantic white cedars out there, but it's like, what is out there? What are we gonna be altering?
Right.
We're gonna need to know what we're gonna be altering as part of the design. Is it
And
open
EGSP
water?
is
Is it
making a real push for native versus non-native.
Oh,
but
absolutely.
I think that there's a good reason sometimes to have non-native if they're non-invasive. So that would be, again, another vegetative survey in different areas. So it's not
Yep.
That's great.
periodic.
Thank you.
I'm gonna try to wrap things up. I know there are a couple of other folks with questions, but is there anybody that hasn't spoken that would like to be recognized? I want to make sure that we get folks A lot of folks have come out tonight. Yes, sure.
I was trying to figure out where exactly this whole environment was of the bog.
You didn't, did you see the
Oh,
original?
I thought of
Okay.
that.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I would have had to be right where you were. There's some way and some place where there's actually a decent map, because I've looked on the website several times and.
What's all like a great map?
It's just east of the hospital.
There's several maps in this folder.
So I didn't get,
This you can actually access on the, Town of Yarmouth website. There's a link directly to
Yeah.
the part of Hyannis Park Civic
yeah,
Association.
I've seen, yeah, but.
So if you can enlarge those maps, if you go into the PDF document.
I have a map, I'm not gonna give this to anybody, but people can look at it here, because this is like 20 years old, but I did find this in my files that shows, this is 20 years old. But it does show the site. Okay. Sorry. So that I can put it up here when, when we break up, that people can take a look at it, because this is really detailed.
Yeah.
I'd just like to see,
Yeah.
Sure.
yeah, I have a rough idea what it is, but we'll hope to see.
Sure.
Cause I have wetlands on my.
Take a look at it. We're not gonna disappear right after we end the meeting. We'll stick around for a while, show you what we have. Chris?
I was gonna say, I've been here since 1981 and have followed a lot of things very actively. Actually, some of the contours of what the existing bog appears to look like now are not what they originally looked like, because there was, because I was there for a number of the hearings. At one point, the hearing on the part of the hospital to start to work on the bog, it was hysterical, was they wanted to put assisted living buildings in at the top, closer to 28.
Right.
And there's actually a proposal that people, the residents there would help maintain the bog, which was pretty funny. But what happened was.
That goes back to her comment,
Yeah.
all the other fantasy ideas.
Well, and what was
Floating.
also interesting was there was land swapping that was done. That is the parking lot area, the employee parking lot up on the top contour there that was originally not developed. There were also some houses down the side that I think were put back into it because they actually built a house or two for a couple of people with a house swap to the east side of the bog. And then there were the contours that I know took place of the land behind my house that was the conservation,
Yeah.
that was made conservation. Will they change? That was the question I had. Will they change the status of conservation land in those areas that are already marked that way, or what happens with this whole project?
Well, there are a set of conservation restrictions that are already in place.
Right,
So is the plan to change those?
yeah,
Any changes that would be made would not be done without the complete support of the Yarmouth Conservation District
okay.
and the hospital. There may be we actually may have to expand the restrictions, and that's
Okay.
something that we'll have to talk to people about. Because there may be a need to, make sure that the areas that are restored, are subject to some kind of restriction.
The
terms
state
of-
requires that as part of this.
Yeah, so we'll have,
So we need to look at that.
Yeah, because they told us this would revert to a white cedar swamp.
that's what
you
we
know,
were told then.
Did
Way
I
back
say
then.
that 20 years ago?
Yeah,
No, more than 20 years ago. Back, well back.
yeah.
It was kind of.
The people here don't forget, yeah, Katie.
That I didn't say that?
Well,
Urban legend.
Right, we can do that.
Right.
I actually went around to look for white cedar swamp, that's what it looked like.
Again, anybody who hasn't been, has asked a question, now's the time, because we're gonna break in a couple of minutes, and what we're gonna also do is we're going to, hang around for a little bit, because some folks may wanna speak sort of one-on-one.
And please email me
Yeah.
with any
Is
questions,
that
information.
on the screen still? Do they still, can we get up there your email address one more time? Is there anybody that's zoomed in that has a burning question?
There might have been some chat.
There
Yeah.
wasn't any question.
No, they kept saying they were muted.
Yeah.
They were muted.
It was only for a few minutes.
All right. Thank you all for coming. Well done. Keep in the loop. You all know how to get a hold of me.
Oh, really?
And thanks to the Yarmouth DPW. Again, we're gonna stick around for a while.
Yeah, they did.
So Linda, thank you.
When I keep everything, I got it. I would appreciate it out. Oh, really?